right. So next up, we have a segment that we call Hidden Gem here. So we like to help out the DCU and the MCU. And we know that they're listening because a few weeks back, Adrian had a hidden gem of Wonder Man, and now they're making a show of Wonder Man. So where did they get that idea, Chris?
Yeah.
Had to have been here.
Yeah, I'm sure they forgot they had that character.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they did. So, and then Adrian nicely
Yeah.
reminded them. So, Adrian's going to break down a hidden gem this week. If you like this segment, check out our playlist on YouTube where we have some greats like Dr. Doom's in there as a hidden gem. So, why would Dr. Doom be a hidden gem? Because he's never been portrayed properly on screen. It was atrocious, his portrayal back in the Fantastic Four. We've had Corsair last week, Cyclops Havoc's dad. We've had Havoc on here.
Yep.
We've had Gotham City as a hidden gem. That's a great one a few weeks back. So anyway, I'm going to turn this over to my man, Adrian. Adrian, what do we got going on Hidden Gem this week?
All right, this week, you've heard us talk about characters that aren't superpowered, right? So we have the Supermans, we have Green Lanterns, we have all these people with all these strength powers, ray beams, and all this other kind of crap. But we also have we like to talk about people as regular people like Sonya. She's in the CIA. Nick Fury, wherever he is, whatever 3 letters he's carrying these days.
Yeah.
We got these people, the Lex Luthors. They aren't super powered, but they have access to things that make them above and beyond the regular person. This week's hidden gem is kind of one of those people. He's kind of in between, like a mid, like a pseudo. This week's hidden gem is Karnak. He is a member of the Inhumans. He's part of the royal family with Black Bolt, Medusa, Gorgon, all these people, right? So the Inhumans, so I was introduced to the Inhumans through the Fantastic Four. When I was introduced to them, they were living on the moon, like in a crater on the moon. They had this field around their entire city to prevent people from detecting them, right? So they were kind of like Canada. They're kind of in the middle of stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't really go to war with anybody. They didn't really have any humans. Enemies. They just wanted to be kind of on their own, isolated. And so they don't really get into a lot of conflict. They don't necessarily have, super villains after them, that kind of thing. They're just kind of hidden off on their own. But part of their coming to being is that they would be born regular, right? And they would go through this thing called the Genesis, Terrigenesis, and it would transform them into something. Now, it was like flipping a coin as to what your power was going to be after the process. Like Black Bolt, he got he can't talk because even a mere whisper of Black Bolt would shatter mountains, right? Medusa, her hair, even though it's like red, it's not snakes, but she can control every fiber of every hair on her body, right? So Karnak's parents, after seeing their first child go through Terrigenesis, he turned into like this green-skinned, water dependent superhero per se, right? In other words, he skins green, he's got scales, he got fins, can't survive outside of water. So they was like, I don't want our second child to go through that process and end up being whatever he's going to be. So they kept him out. He basically went to study, right? So even though so Karnak's thing is he's a regular Inhuman, which means that he's more powerful than strength-wise than a regular human. So by default, he can lift like a ton, 2,000 pounds. But outside of that, to a Inhuman, he's not a superpowered person. However, he went studied martial arts, right? Now, he did have a innate ability, a psychic ability to detect weaknesses in any person, any object, or any situation. So he can walk into a room, and regardless of what's in the room, he can detect if there's some weakness in the situation. But he can also detect if there's a weakness in you. He can detect if there's a weakness in any object.
Yeah.
So what does that do? So through his training, he's like a Batman, where his psychic ability is Batman's innate ability to be a detective, right? But he honed his mind and his body to the point where he doesn't need to have superpowers. And he's knocked out Silver Surfer, right? He's I mean, people have thrown like boulders at him. He can look at the boulder coming at him, detect the weakness in the boulder, and do some knuckle trick, right? And shatter the boulder in mid-flight.
Wow.
He's cut bullets in half. I mean, he's gone up against foes that are way more powerful than him, way stronger than him, way bigger than him. So his like Batman, he's trained his mind and his body to the point where he just don't need the power. He doesn't need whatever the Terrigenesis process was going to give him in the first place. So I think that a person like that deserves to be brought up out of the comics. I mean, again, you can put a person like that anywhere in any comic. He's just a regular guy walking down the street, but he can do all these amazing abilities. Now, because he's part of the Inhumans, which are like, they're a royal family. They're kind of like the Black Panther in Wakanda. They kind of like isolated from any other government.
Mm-hmm.
It would be kind of hard because if you bring one, you're going to bring all of them to some degree. But I think Karnak, his abilities, the fact that he has trained himself to that level of perfection, I think that him being basically a regular guy, not having any innate abilities, any mutant abilities. He doesn't rely on technology. Literally, it's just his hands and his body. One time, the Vision can turn basically into like a untouchable, right? Karnak vibrated his hands at a certain frequency so that he was able to attack Vision in his phase mode.
Oh, shit.
So he's trained his mind and body to that point. I mean, we have like Daredevil, we have the Batman. I think it would be awesome to see a character like that show up to where, he doesn't have all this tech like an Iron Man. He doesn't have all this power like a Superman, but he can get in there and still get things done. And he can go up against foes that are like immensely, vastly more powerful or bigger or stronger than him.
Yeah.
So this week's hidden gem, Karnak. I think we should see more. I think we should see more of the whole Inhuman family because I mean it's such a range of characters. They tried to bring them have a show Inhumans.
Yeah.
It was okay.
I haven't seen that.
But it's not really worthy of that whole family of characters. I mean, they could do so much more with it.
How did you feel about the Karnak portrayal in Inhumans, the show?
I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
I think they kind of neutered him. And again, so I've been looking at comics for a few decades, and they've sold me on how characters should look. And in my mind, because of that exposure, I have an idea about how I think characters should look. And he did that. The actor did not fit. Like a Henry Cavill fits a Superman.
Right.
A Ben Affleck fits a Batman.
A Halle Berry. Oh no, never mind.
No, Halle Berry. Halle Berry does not. What's his face is Professor X.
Yeah.
The other guy is the T'Challa. You know, so you have certain people that fit the character. You'd be like, oh, but he didn't.
Right.
So just like this guy, I'm glad he bowed out. They watched only comics, and he was like, maybe I shouldn't take this role.
Right.
And so he wouldn't have been a good Sentry.
Right.
I think. Right. So no, I didn't like the portrayal of Karnak in the show. How
about the show overall?
Huh?
How about the show in general?
It was good to see them bring it out.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of slow. The actor, I think they also neutered the Black Bolt actor.
Yeah.
Black Bolt should have been more animated, something, right?
Yo, how stupid was that scene in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness when Black Bolt dies just because she closed his mouth and like he talks and like so that's he's never like closed his mouth before. Like,
And mumbled.
Yeah, how stupid was that?
So dumb.
I
That's
no
up there. I
comment.
mean, that's not a Martha moment, but,
Right.
Why did you say that? It's not that level, but it's close, dude.
So he killed himself by mumbling.
Yeah, because he never
Wow.
mumbled before. Yeah,
It's so dumb. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. It's just
I probably saw it and just glazed over it, but you would think that the fact that this power is coming out of his mouth and the fact that he can contain it by keeping his mouth closed,
right.
anything that he did internal
Yeah.
he would
Why would Scarlet Witch sewing his mouth shut
I know.
cause him to blow up his own
What's the
head?
one thing I can't do? Scream. I'll start there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's yeah. It was a great scene.
Wow. Now, actually, in the comics, Ms. Marvel is an Inhuman. She gets exposed with the Terrigen Mist. That's how she gets her powers, which we've not seen in the shows.
Yeah, I don't recall that one.
Yeah.
That would have been, but that would be odd so Ms. Marvel got her. I'm not saying that it didn't.
Yeah.
I definitely missed that one but I also forgot all about the white female Ms. Marvel throughout the comics. I knew of two Marvels.
No, not Captain Marvel. Ms. Marvel.
Oh, Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Miss Marvel.
They obviously changed it for the show, but there is an origin where she's exposed to the Terrigen Mist, which is how she gets her powers. In the MCU now, she's a mutant. So they're obviously going to somehow use that to bring X-Men in, I would assume.
They once thought that Franklin Richards was a mutant too.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually disappointed. He went through this process where he was actually disappointed that he wasn't a mutant.
Really?
But they set up his genome so that people thought that he was a mutant because they couldn't explain his powers any other way or something like that. But then come to find out that he wasn't a mutant. He's just this beyond Omega level individual.
Yeah.
But he didn't classify as a mutant. So who knows? It would just seem odd they didn't want to go through the Terrigen Mist to get that kind of a power. It's just weird to me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I said she was, here it is. Kamala developed her superpowers after Marvel's Infinity storyline. When the Terrigen Mists are released, her dormant Inhuman abilities are activated by the mist on a rare night so it wasn't like with the Inhumans originally, but somehow it was released. And they used a similar story in the game. There was an Avengers game that came out a few years ago, which the main story campaign was great. And then once that was done, what was left for the game fucking sucked. It was atrocious. But the story was pretty cool. And they did a similar story there where some type of mist was released, and that's how she got her powers. But obviously MCU, they changed it with the bangle and the whole deal. Right. But dude, Karnak, this is I'd love to see this dude on screen done properly though. I mean, sounds like a badass character. Yeah. To your point, like a Daredevil. Like imagine him fighting Daredevil. You know?
Oh, that would probably be a short fight.
Yeah, who'd win?
Karnak.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Man. Oh yeah. We'll see how the universe fits. See, when we say stuff like that, sometimes Chris, that's when that condition comes out.
Yeah.
The butt hurt. That's when it happens.
They start commenting?
Yeah, they start. But Karnak, did you watch Inhumans? You ever seen the show?
No.
No,
I didn't.
Me neither. And that kind of was around like I think it was like a spinoff of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Didn't the Inhumans debut there, or they at least talked about it or something? I
think it was in the same timeline, meaning like our timeline. It was, about around the same production time.
Right. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Another great hidden gem from Adrian. If you like that, check out the rest of the playlist.